So let's go right into chapter 3. There are 4 chapters of the Book of Ruth. Thank you so much for being here. And this is Rabbi Rav Fischer of Young Israel of Orange County, and I welcome you to our class on the Book of Ruth, our 4th session for the last 2 chapters. Please find us on YouTube for the previous chapters, and in order to be informed of these classes that are so wonderful and the latest breaking news on the world coming to pieces, subscribe to our YouTube network and sign up for our classes, or give us or drop us an email and we're here. Here we go. Okay. Really remind ourselves where we left off chapter 2, and let's roll. I'm going to start reading chapter 2, verse 18. I'm not going to go in detail because we've already gone in detail. Just going to race through the rest of chapter 2, refresher, and do it in English. No need to do it in Hebrew right now. We've established that I could read Hebrew. Okay. So Ruth gleaned, and she brought it back to town. When Naomi, the mother-in-law, saw what she brought, and when she took out and gave her what she had after eating plenty, so Naomi said, "Where'd you get all of this? Where'd you work? Baruch Hashem, blessed be He. Baruch, Yehi Makirech Baruch. May the person who let you take all of this gleanings from his field be blessed. And he took such generous notice of you." And Ruth told Naomi, the guy's name is Boaz, and Naomi said, oh my God, that's our relative. Blessed be He of the Lord. So Baruch Hu Hashem, Shelo Azav Chasto, V'Tachayim V'Ametim. God, look how God gave us the miracle of all the people. You, the Moabites, having no idea what you're doing, who you're going to, you just happen to fall upon the field of a member of our family, of our next in kin. What a bracha. And yeah, Ruth says, he told me stay close. He's going to watch over me. He told his, and Naomi said, well, at best, my daughter, that you go out with his girls and not be annoyed in another field. We talked last class in great detail about how male farm hands looking at a very pretty girl and wide open field, what goes on there. So she stayed close to the maidservants of Boaz, Ruth did, and gleaned until the barley harvest. Okay, here we go. The barley harvest takes place, we learned, during Shavuos time, Chag HaShavuot, and that's June, as we know. Just every year, as we just did now, celebrated it. And the wheat harvest is Sukkot time, and Sukkot, you know, is in September, late September, early October. So how long is it from June to September? June to July to August to September is 3 months, and then about another half month. So it's 3 to 4 months that Ruth stayed around. She kept, right after she finished gathering barley sheaves, she started going for wheat sheaves. Again, we, in the modern world, Jews, we're doctors and lawyers, accountants and rabbis and IT specialists, and we're not farmers outside of Israel where we're in kibbutzim. And there's a whole reason Jews are not farmers anywhere else, because we get kicked out of so many countries, seriously speaking, over centuries. What happened to Jews sociologically and culturally is we gave up farming because we learned there's nowhere we're safe. And everywhere, no matter how safe we feel, like America now, you never know when they're going to throw us out. And if you're in diamonds and they announce, you're kicked out of the country in 3 weeks or 3 hours, you can start putting diamonds in your shoes. And if you're in medicine or law, you bring your brain with you, and you just have to learn a new language, but you can apply all the skills you learned. Medicine is medicine is medicine. And IT is IT is IT. And even law, the laws might be a little bit different, but the approach to lawyering is the same in every country. And by contrast, if they get thrown out of a country and you're a farmer, you cannot take your business with you. It's the one business you cannot take with you. You cannot take the farm with you. What are you going to take, some oranges and some corn? You cannot take your business with you. So you have to leave, when they throw you out of the country, you have to leave all of your lifetime assets behind. That is why Jews outside Israel got out of farming. That's why you never meet Jewish farmers outside of Israel. There were some Jewish farmers, another time, another class in Vineland, New Jersey. That's a whole story unto itself. But the very fact that that failed, in the end, nobody associates Jews with Vineland, New Jersey, or another place in California. So, but this time, everybody was a farmer. Everybody was in agriculture in Arutz Sheva. And so she's based there for 3 years, as they understand if you're in that business, you don't think of it if you're not in that business, but when the barley ends, now it's wheat season. And we don't realize it, but that's what's going on with Shavuot and Sukkot. Shavuot and Sukkot have a religious reason for existing, for God's commanding those holidays. And there's also a secular agricultural reason. If you ever live in Israel, you encounter all these godless, left-wing, non-atheist, non-Jewish farmers, non-religious farmers, who nevertheless celebrate Sukkot and Shavuot, no less than the most Orthodox rabbis. And they celebrate these as agricultural holidays. I remember when I lived there in 1985 to 87, we got there in June, and I was surprised all over Hadera, which is where I started off, they're celebrating Shavuot. And I'm thinking like, my first impression was, go figure, Israel is so Jewish that the people here celebrate Shavuot better than even in America, even Yom Kippur. Or look how Jewish they are. Here in America, the big thing is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Nobody knows about Shavuot. And there I was, just having arrived in Aliyah in Arutz Sheva in 85. And my God, everybody in the country is closed down for Shavuot. I mean, in America, what is it? Most of us don't even know it passed. That just took place a week or two ago. It's cheese blintzes and cheesecake. And so I started spending a few days talking to people. And I went to some Shavuot celebrations that were taking place not on Shavuot, but the day before, the day after. And what I learned is all those people were godless. They don't observe Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. But for them, that's their celebration of the successful barley season, the growing season. And they said, come back for Sukkot. And yeah, they build a sukkah, and yeah, they eat cheesecake or whatever. Well, they don't do the cheese because that's the religious custom, but they do the flowers or whatever, and they celebrate. Okay. Now, it's very important to understand this because it helps us understand she's there from June to October. And this is important for another reason. In Jewish law, when someone converts to Judaism, I know there's so many things I end up teaching beyond what's in the text, and people come to me later and send me emails and they say, it is unbelievable that Judaism that I learned from you, Rabbi Fischer, that has nothing to do with the official title of the classes, but I've learned more Judaism aside from the books, from what you talk about in between, than I did the last 20 years. So I'll teach you something else. When a person converts to Judaism and the Beit Din decides, okay, you've been at it for 2 years, you've learned all the halachot, you know what there is to know, you failed your test, but the test is not really what matters. We really don't care if the 2 years, whether you get the questions. In conservative, they want you to get the right answers. In Reform, they don't ask anyway. In Orthodox, they ask, and you get the answers right, and if you get the answers wrong, it doesn't matter. If the local rabbi who's been your mentor and your sponsor tells the Beit Din, after 2 years, I've seen him for 2 years, they come to shul every Shabbos, and they keep every one of the mitzvahs and the chagim. They keep Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, but they also keep Shavuot, and they keep everything. Then the fact that she goes blank, I remember one particularly, she went absolutely blank. She freaked out. And she couldn't answer a question. She didn't know what day of the week Shabbos was. They were trying to help her just get something right. And so when she was losing, they just wanted to give her a feeling, just answer one question about Judaism right, and then you give us an opening to say, okay, you're ready for conversion. And remember when the rabbi said, which day of the week is Shabbos? And she absolutely had stage fright, even though she's sitting at a table, just pure stage fright. And she had been studying for like a month, every note that she had taken. And it was really both hysterically funny and tragic. And they looked at me. No, I said, she's ready. And they said, okay, you're ready. You're ready. And yeah, afterwards on the drive home, I drove her there, I drove her back. She's saying all the answers to all the questions. Just freaked out. So one of the things that happens when the Beis Din decides you are ready for conversion right now, there has to be a 3-month wait before the conversion takes place. Unless they have so much decided already that they start you 3 months before. But the 3-month wait means for 3 months you can't be with the man. Typically what happens is one of two things. Either the woman, I mostly do woman conversions. I don't do male conversions. There are various reasons, nothing halachic, just sociological and professional experience. I don't have that many men who want to convert compared to women. Usually the dynamic is a Jewish man wants to marry a non-Jewish woman. You don't have nearly as many Jewish women trying to marry non-Jewish men. It happens, but the intermarriage dynamic usually is a Jewish man wants a shiksa. And there's a whole class, or actually a whole, I could spend a year on that. Why Jewish men and what that's all about. But the vast majority of conversions are Jewish men to non-Jewish women. So the conversions typically are women. So that's what I'm normally doing. And then besides that, there are other reasons I tend to do women conversions rather than men. And anyway, I'm not the full-time converter, so to speak. I'm the guide and the sponsor, and the Beit Din oversees the more thorough process of the conversion itself. So what's the thing? Usually it's a non-Jewish woman who's married civilly to a Jewish man. Well, if she's going to keep all the halakha, now the man's got to come to all the classes too. So, because she's got to, she's going to go to mikveh every month, but he's going to fool around with her all the time anyway? No, he's got to follow mikveh too. He doesn't have to go into the mikveh, but he has to know that these are the rules and they apply to you both. She's going to keep Shabbos and he's going to watch the NCAA football games in the other room? No. He's got to keep Shabbos too. She's going to maintain a kosher kitchen, but he's going to bring in a Big Mac that he keeps in his bedroom? No. It's got to be so. And then they have children. She's going to be religious, so children have to go to yeshiva. And he's going to have to be a proper father. So what ends up happening in a typical conversion is that you convert the woman, and l'ma'aseh, actually you end up converting the guy too. You don't call it a conversion. He just sits in, and he becomes essentially converted from a non-observant guy to a Orthodox Jew. And I mean, here in Irvine, which is not Borough Park, Brooklyn, or Bnei Brak, Israel, or such a frum place, you have in Irvine, you have all these converted couples that are in the shul, and they're the ones who know Judaism, the ones that really a rabbi can talk to. When the rabbi gets up to speak on Shabbos morning, he's looking at the converts because they understand what he's talking about. And he talks about Shavuos, and he talks about they know what he's talking about. And they and their husbands, all their non-religiously reared husbands who had to go through the conversion, but all the born Jews, they don't know from nothing. They just know it's Shavuos, and they took the day off. They don't know from nothing. And you could really tell, in Irvine, you could tell the converts, they're the ones who know how to keep Shabbos. They're the ones who know how to keep kosher. And you could tell the ones that are born Jewish, not FFB, not from birth, but nothing from birth, NFB, and you could tell them because they don't know from nothing. So one of the things is that the girl, she's converting to Judaism, and she's married to a Jewish man, and they got married by a judge or whatever civil thing they got, or a reform rabbi, same difference. For 3 months, they have to live apart. Did you know that? So they have to live apart for 3 months. Mamish, Ellen Zichron Levrach and I would typically have the lady sleeping over a house for 3 months. Or they could rent a hotel room. Or we would have the guy over for 3 months, but they're more messy. So we prefer to have the women. Also, they would cook for us. Not really, but it's a good line to throw in. And for 3 months, they have to live apart. And we would have them living in our home partly to confirm that they're living apart. Otherwise, they say, well, he'll get a room at the Marriott, and then who knows what they're doing every night. So they have to know what's that all about? Why do they have to be apart for 3 months? So if she gets pregnant, we know whether she was impregnated before or after the conversion. What does that matter? Well, you've been with me for Tuesday night classes and for Thursday classes. If she got impregnated before the day that she went into the mikveh, got converted, the baby will be a Jew because the baby will come out of a Jewish mother. The mother will convert, and then the baby comes out. So the baby, even if impregnated when the mother was non-Jewish, we simply look at what did the baby come out of. The baby came out of a Jewish mother, the baby's Jewish. And what if the baby comes out after the conversion? So the baby's a guy, and then we put the baby into a mikveh, and the baby gets converted as a little itsy bitsy baby. The baby doesn't understand what's going on, so the baby is allowed to unconvert, to declare, I don't want to be Jewish, up to and including the day of bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. If on that day the baby goes through the bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, albeit only for the money, then the baby's Jewish for life. Then they go on later and they say, I don't want to be Jewish. So, what are we going to do? But when they go before God for judgment after their life ends, they'll be judged as a Jew. I never kept Shabbos. I was treif. I never ate kosher. But I said, God, at age 17, I don't want to be Jewish anymore. God says, sorry. You should have said so before the bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah. You're a Jew. You ate treif and you broke Shabbos, and that's the rules we're holding you by. So we're concerned if she's pregnant. The woman we know, but we also learned that if a man gets a non-Jewish woman pregnant, the man is not the father. We learned that many times already. So the child has no tribe. If the man is a Kohen, he shouldn't be with a non-Jewish woman anyway, nor should anyone else, but especially Kohen. But the child's not a Kohen because the father's not a father. Even after the conversion, the mother will be the mother, but the father's not the father. We learned this so many times. So we mandate, it's commanded, that a woman going through conversion must not be living with her civilly married husband for 3 months between the time she converted. And so now, if she's pregnant, we know whether she got impregnated as a Jew or as a guy. Again, the child, it doesn't matter what religion, it'll all be Jewish, but the father will matter. Okay. So with Ruth being prepped to convert to Judaism, or having just converted with Naomi, we now need her to wait 3 months before she can marry anybody. So she could not marry Boaz at the time of the barley harvest. Even if they would agree at that time to marry, it would have to wait till the wheat harvest. It's got nothing to do with barley and wheat. It's got to do with, from the time of conversion, she'd have to wait 3 months before she could live with Boaz or Ploni Almoni. So that if she then got pregnant, there would be no doubt, right? Because otherwise, when did she get pregnant? 8 months ago, 9 months ago. So that's that. All right. Very, very important concept. Especially since this is all ultimately the whole story. The whole point of this book being in the Bible is because it's the progenitor of King David. And it's all about her having a baby with Boaz that leads to the birth of Oved, that leads to the birth of Yishai, that leads to the birth of David. That's the whole point of the story. Other stories are about learning how to live a good Jewish life. And I have taught you along the way so many additional lessons to be learned from this story. But the point, why is this just in the Bible? Why did the Chazal, the rabbis, canonize it and say, this is not just an important book, but this actually is going to be, instead of a Bible of 23 books, we're going to make it 24 books. It's not the last one that was added. That was Megillat Esther. But why did we make it? Because it's the book of the birth of King David and the origins of Mashiach. And therefore, it's very important. The pairing with Boaz and the getting married. Can you imagine how the whole story changes if she had not waited 3 months? Then she got pregnant. She got pregnant from Boaz. But if it was from before her conversion, then Boaz is not the father. So what's the whole point of the story? And she's not, and the whole thing is, he's not from the tribe of Judah. This is a very big thing. And I'm going to say this carefully for Christians who attend our class or catch us on YouTube. This is said with the utmost respect. And I don't want to, in any way, shape, or form, sound disrespectful of Christian theology. But I'm just sharing with you the difference of Jewish theology in this matter. The Messiah will be from the house of David. Everybody agrees with this. Christianity teaches it. Judaism teaches it. The Messiah will come from the house of David, Mashiach ben David. According to Christian theology, Mary was a virgin. She did not have sex with Joseph. The baby came, or if she had sex with Joseph, it was not in the creation of baby Jesus. According to Christian theology, baby Jesus was born. Mary and Joseph were there together, and the divine spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, which is wrongly translated into the Holy Ghost, which is may as well learn some Christianity while we're here. Ruach HaKodesh does not mean Holy Ghost. It's mistranslation. When they say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Ruach HaKodesh is divine spirit. And the Christian Bible was written in Hebrew, not in English. So it's mistranslated like so much else. According to Christianity, God, the Father, sent a divine spirit that impregnated Mary with Jesus, because sex is dirty. So, and it couldn't be that the Messiah, God's only son, would have come from just a guy. Judaism says, if that is true, if that account is true, then Jesus is not from the house of David, because Jesus' father, birth father, he had no birth father, so he has no tribe. You don't get a tribe by virtue of your stepfather, of the father who says, well, your mom is pregnant and I'll raise you, I'll rear you. You get your tribe even from an absentee father who's a one-night stand and gets lost. If he's Jewish, she's Jewish, and he's got a tribe. He did a big sin, but he's the father. The government will make him pay child support if you ever find him. And he's the father according to halakha. And he sets the tribe. So Jesus, if the story of the Christian Bible is true, and we're not going there, Jesus had no tribe. Jesus had no father. So he was not from the house of David. Joseph was from the house of David, maybe, maybe not. Let's say he was, who cares? Jesus was not from the house of David. So that's one of many reasons that Jews believe or don't believe what we do. So this is very important to understand. Ruth the Moabitess, she will determine her child's tribe, her religion. She converted to Judaism, so her children are Jewish. Ethnically, call them Moabites. You go in 23andMe and you come back and you say, I didn't know it, I'm a Moabite. People come to me and say, I don't know if I need a conversion, Rabbi, because I got back from 23andMe that I'm 41% Jewish, or I'm 83% Eastern European, Russia and Ukraine. So I guess I'm Jewish anyway. No, you're not. Even if you're 100% descended from Jews, who is your mother? And who knows what went on? Okay. So we continue. So much to learn. Here we go. Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "Daughter, I must seek a home for you where you be happy. It's time to get married." The rabbis explain it's now moved to 3 months. See that? Question, why did Naomi suddenly say it now? After she gleaned all the gleanings, the 3 months were up. Until the 3 months were up, it was too early for Naomi to marry off Ruth. Ruth is Jewish, she's converted, but she can't marry that because they don't have a rabbi there to put him up for 3 months. And that's why she says it. That's why all of a sudden from out of nowhere, chapter 3, daughter, I must seek a home for you. No. Hello, avakishlach manoach. Okay, because it's 3 months already. Now there is our kinsman Boaz, whose girls you are close to. That is not daughters, but the women who work in his farm. And you're part of that place. They know you. He'll be winnowing barley on the threshing floor tonight. This is winnowing is after you've harvested and cut the thing off the ground, it's taking it the next step, getting rid of the chaff and all of that stuff. Okay. So the barley harvest is done, and they're celebrating Shavuos, and that's the big problem. That's the big thing. Will God have provided the proper weather and climatic needs for the farm to provide the grain successfully? There's so many things that can go wrong. The Gemara says the two most religious people in the world, the two careers that have the highest percentage of God-fearing people are farmers and seamen, naval people, commercial people. Those are the people who are most religious, because every day on the sea, even more so in those days, you're terrified if there's a storm. Every day you could die. You could die of a storm. You could die of shipwreck and Titanic and drowning and attack and pirates. And there's no one there to save you. You're in the middle of nowhere. So they're constantly praying every day, please God, may the weather hold out. And farmers, may the weather hold out. All of my efforts, the whole season, we planted, we reaped, we plowed, we watered, and we guided, and all we need is one thing go wrong. That's what happened in Ireland in the 1840s, mid-19th century. They did everything right. The potatoes grew beautifully in the 1840s in Ireland. And then on the last days of the potato harvest, when it would be ready to start cutting the potatoes from the earth, the fungus started to show. And that's what made it even more incredibly impossible for the Irish, because you never knew, are we going to have a problem? And you could not prepare in time. You had to wait and wait and wait as the potatoes beautifully budded from that little bud and you just waited and you looked and it was beautiful and you're planning a wonderful year. And then like the last days, you see the blight, the mold, and it means the entire nation is going to be starving. And it's too late to prepare alternatives. And that's why people were dying in the thousands, tens of thousands, maybe millions, I don't know. And that's why they all started coming to America and Europe, other parts of Europe, because they didn't have time for Plan B. So it's a big, big thing. And now he's winnowing. They've got the great success. Now it's just a matter of processing it, getting rid of the chaff and doing whatever you do with your grain. Okay. So Naomi tells her the following. I want you to actually, Naomi does not say it this way and does not mean it this way, but I'm putting it this way. She's basically telling her, dress like a modest prostitute. Prostitution is absolutely not on the table here. It is meant in the most moral way, but that's the appearance. To make yourself as sexually attractive as conceivable. Not meant as a pun. And to make you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Until now, Boaz's only impression of Ruth is as a schwitzing, hardworking person in the middle of a farm and the sun beating down in June in Eretz Israel, near Bethlehem, Beit Lechem, gathering sheaves, and she's schwitzing. But he understands because everybody in his universe looks like that. He knows what people look like on the farm. So he's not shocked or appalled by how bad people look while they're farming. The question is, he hasn't seen her when she's not sweating and she's wearing nice clothing and she doesn't perhaps have the odor of someone who's working all day in the field. And this will be his first such impression. And the idea is like King Ahasuerus with Esther. You get one first impression. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So you got to get it right. Mamish, literally, this is like what happened with Esther and King Ahasuerus. Ba'erev hi ba'a, u'baboker hi shava. That she comes for one night, and that's going to decide all of Jewish history in both those cases. So bathe, anoint yourself. In other words, put on creams and oils, whatever makeup. Anoint yourself, put on whatever makeup. V'samt simlo tayich alayich. Put on your Shabbos clothes. That's what the commentators use. That's the expression the commentators use to say the single nicest thing in your wardrobe. And if you only have one nice thing, you're poor and you only have one nice thing in your wardrobe, and you don't even have a wardrobe, the nicest thing you have, bathe, make yourself up, put on the nicest thing you have, put on the best perfume, and have a look that he won't get out of his mind. And go down to the threshing floor. You've got to get to him, on the one hand, with no one around, so no one looks upon you as being a prostitute. And no one looks upon you as being a woman of lacking in morals. As if, there's the Moabite is coming out now. You can take the Jew out of Moab, but you can't take the Moab out of you can take the Goy out of Moab, but you can't take the Moab out of the Goy. No, you cannot be seen by anyone. And it's got to be somewhere, even, it's not enough that you're meeting with him in broad daylight. People will talk. They'll take one look at you. They haven't seen you look like the way you're going to look this time. They've seen you, like Boaz, they've seen you in the field. They see you dressed like what I have in mind and sitting with him. It's just a no-go. So you have to figure out a way to look like that, smell like that, generate those thoughts in him, and no one else knows. So the only way you can do that is at night, in secret. Now, the good news is that in secret, this is unbelievable mazel, or it's a miracle from God that it's even possible. But what happens is, in night, in secret, he and only he sleeps in the barn, so to speak. The big, gigantic barn, not a small barn. This is not Joseph and Mary. This is a serious barn. Because it's a warehouse. Because he doesn't want people stealing his stuff. He's the owner. His workers don't sleep there. But he sleeps there every night during the harvest. Look, what's the point in being rich if you have to sleep in a barn all your life? He normally sleeps in his great mansion or whatever. But during the height of harvest, when the grains have been cut off from the ground and now are stored for daily winnowing, and what goes next? He sleeps in the barn to prevent loss, stealing, and other damage. So if you can manage to sneak into the barn at night, you don't need an advance appointment. He'll be there. If you could manage to sneak in it by a light like 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., when everyone else is gone, no one will see you. You'll go in, there's no lights, there's no electricity in those days. And it's not such a good idea to light candles all around dry grain. So it's going to be dark, black dark. There's not going to be any street lights outside either. It is going to be black dark. The only thing you have is stars. But you're inside the barn, so you don't really get the benefit of much light from the stars, except for the window. And the window is covered because it's night. So you want to sleep. You don't want to be woken up, maybe. Okay. You got to get in there. And he's there to protect from robbery, spoilage. And that's what Naomi is telling her. And now this is tricky because you don't want to project to him that you are immoral. Like, what's a woman doing in my bed? So this is like so hard. You got to dress tznius, tzniut. You have to dress very, very modestly, but it has to be incredibly beautifully. It's very hard to find that. Today, it's impossible practically. I remember Ellen Zichron Livracha shopping. I used to go shopping for her also. I wouldn't do that typically, but to find modest clothing that was not frumpy, I had to go finding that. Because there are stores that sell modest clothing that's frumpy. And there are stores that clothe nice clothing that you can't wear. Either it shows the whole back, or it shows the upper half of the top, starting at the breasts and going. A Rebbitzin can't. I know Orthodox Jewish. Any Jewish girl should not wear that. So you have to wear something, but she's got to wear something that is as suggestive as you can make it under the circumstances, that will put you in his mind that he will want to do this, because this is about getting him to have a baby with you. That's actually what this is all about. We have to get you, it's not only the way you think of it nowadays, that we're trying to get you married. We're trying to get you a Jewish baby from this guy, or from any guy. Naomi is not thinking Mashiach. Naomi is just thinking, I don't want my family line to end. That's what Naomi's thinking. My husband's dead. My 2 sons are dead. I have no lineage. My family line is gone. I have no grandchildren. I need you. You're my only chance. Oprah's out. Oprah, she's out. All I have left is you. You're not literally my daughter, but you're good enough. I need you to get married and have a grandchild. That's what this is about. It's not a love story. At the end of the day, this is a story about a grandmother, a lady whose entire family has been wiped out, and she's so elderly, and this is her last chance to continue her lineage by having a grandchild. A child that'll be religious, keep Shabbos, keep kosher, and not end up just directing the rest of the lineage into nothing. Now, how are you going to do that? So you're going to bathe, you're going to anoint yourself, you're going to dress up, you're going to go down to the threshing floor, and don't disclose yourself to Boaz until he's finished eating and drinking. It's going to be late at night. When he lies down, I don't even know how you can even see him. You know, your irises will adjust so that you'll be able to see a little in the dark, but what are you going to see? Note the place where he lies down. go over and uncover his feet and lie down. So you're going to be lying down at his feet. He's going to be lying, doesn't want to be on a hard floor. He's probably going to pile a bunch of sheaves, for all I know. I don't know what it feels like to sleep on sheaves, but maybe that's more comfortable than just on hard ground or instead of on mud. I don't know. Find where he lies down. He's going to be the only guy in the barn or the warehouse. Everybody will be gone, and you lie down at his feet. He'll know what to tell you. Whoa, what's that all about? So there's a lot of stuff going on here. And here's what's going on. The concept of Yavama. If a man dies without children and has a living, we've learned this in Ruth before, and has a living brother, in biblical times when you were allowed to have more than one wife at a time, the surviving brother must marry your widow and have a baby, not only to marry the widow to fool around and then get divorced, or to live with her for 20, 50, 100 years because she's gorgeous. He has to have a baby with her. That's called, his action is called yibum. She's called a yavama. He's called the meyabim. The meyabim does yibum to the yavama. Okay. The baby that is born from that is regarded in Jewish history as the child of the deceased brother, not the father who impregnated the widow, now his wife or his extra wife, but the child of the deceased. And the Torah says that the brother-in-law who marries her and becomes her husband does this with the intention of preserving his deceased brother's name in Israel, that his line will continue. That's what that's all about. So we need to get Boaz to get you pregnant, or we need to get somebody to marry you, and may as well be Boaz. Naomi is elderly. She doesn't know how much time she has. And the longer you wait, the longer you wait. And at this moment in time, Boaz is an old man. He's a really old man. And he has a very good impression of Ruth, right? It's never going to get better than now. His impression of her as a person, not as a gorgeous lady, because she looks like a mess, working in the hot sun every day, gathering sheaves. But he's so impressed with her midot, her characteristics. We learned this last class, that he elevates her and guards her from his improper workmen, and gives her special oversight and protection, and I'll provide you food and water, and you'll drink with them, and you'll eat with them, and you'll be with the women. And he's got this incredible impression of her. All the other men at the farm, what's their impression? Boy, she's a hot chick. What a babe. Or whatever the expressions are nowadays. So Naomi, I mean, worst comes to worst, if there's nothing else, we'll take one of them. But in the first instance, if there's someone we can get this old man, and his wife just died. His wife, the Gemara tells us, died the day that Ruth set foot in Bethlehem. There's an expression in Judaism, most people don't know it, that God creates the cure before he creates the disease. And this comes from the story. It's a Gemara, and it's a belief. God always creates the cure before he creates the disease. That means the cure for cancer is in the world. The cure for everything is in the world. The job is to find it. Lung illness, interstitial lung disease. Turns out all you needed was a dead guy's lung. It was always there. But even if you had it, you wouldn't have been able to save a life, because initially they didn't know about having to suppress the immunosystem so that your body wouldn't fight off the external lung. But it was always there. And the medicines were always there. The chemicals were always there from which to make Myfortic or mycophenolate mofetil or the Prograf, tacrolimus. It was always there. We believe that every single illness in the world, God first creates the cure. Rabbi Rav Moshe Tendler, my Rabbi, Zechat Tzaddik Levracha, I learned with him. He was my rabbinic sponsor, you might say. He was my main Rabbi in yeshiva when I was learning for smicha. He had a great sense of humor also. I don't know if you'll find it funny, but he was very witty. And he noted, when he was teaching us this very concept, he noted that the rabbis, in setting up the order of the Talmud, the different tractates of the Talmud, first they have the tractate Gittin for getting divorced, and then the next one they put in the order is tractate Kedushin for getting married. He says they put in the divorce before the marriage, consistent with the Jewish concept that God first creates the cure before he creates the disease. So he had that insight. So what we have here in the same way is that Boaz's wife died just before or just as Ruth was entering the land, so that he then would be available. It was her time to go. It was her time to arrive. Okay. I actually had someone, a very dear friend of mine who doesn't live in California, after I told him the story of how I met Denise and how we got married and everything, he said he cited the same Gemara and same thing from Ruth. Says it's the way I met Denise was her first encounter was coming to a public seder that our shul had, and I mentioned that her first encounter was she came to the shul's public seder and she met Ellen and me and we became friends, and she became friends with Ellen and became part of our shul. And he said it's like that. But you see how HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought her. I mean, I'm very sorry for what happened with Ellen, he said, and he loved Ellen very much. Also, everyone did. He said, but you actually see, it's like he was already planting Denise in place before he took Ellen. He was saying it's a very blessed marriage for that reason. He didn't know Denise, never met her, still hasn't. But he said this clearly was a marriage blessed by God, the way he put her in place. Just, it's not like you even met her on J-Date or whatever they use nowadays. So you'll go, you'll be with Boaz. He can marry you now. He's a widower. And what's the deal with the shoe? You'll sit at his feet. And this comes up again in the story. The levirate marriage, that's a yibum marriage, is executed the following way. The available living brother-in-law marries the widow of his brother and has the baby, and you know how that happens. Or he has the right to refuse to marry for any reason. It could be she's not pretty enough, or he's not interested, or he's married and he doesn't want a problem at home, or he doesn't want another kid to deal with. Whatever his reason, he is allowed to say, I don't want to. And in that case, there's the mitzvah of chalitza. And in the mitzvah of chalitza, according to the Torah, they go in front of a beis din, a bet din, 3, and he recites a formal statement. Basically, I don't want to do it, and I do not want to raise a house in Israel in memory of my brother. It's pretty heavy stuff. It's not like I don't want to raise. It's not like he doesn't want to raise a house in Israel in memory of his brother. Just she's not pretty enough for him. But that's what he says. It's a pasuk in the Torah, and the Beis Din has him read the pasuk instead of getting creative. Just read the pasuk. I don't want to have to raise a house in Israel in memory of my brother. In light of that, the woman does two things. She unbuckles a shoe. Nowadays, we either slip on a shoe or we tie with shoelaces. In those days, they buckled shoes. Think about it. No joke. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Why not 1, 2, lace my shoe? They used to buckle shoes, not lace them. That's how they made them. Why? Maybe they didn't have the manufacturing know-how to create I don't know. So she would unbuckle the shoe, take off the shoe, and spit at the foot of the shoe. Literally spit, pui. And that's called chalitza. So Naomi is recommending, according to the commentaries, that Ruth lie down next to Boaz at his feet so as modestly to convey she's modest. It's already quite awkward. She's not going to come right out and say, marry me. But Naomi feels this is a way to convey to Boaz, well, what's it going to be? Are you going to raise a son in memory of my husband, your cousin? Or are you going to do the shoe thing? Do I have to take off your shoe and spit at your foot? But instead of saying it that way, crudely, crassly, lie at his feet and he will understand the meaning. We don't think like that today. But it could be. People so holy, that could be. And that's the thinking. As it is, there's not going to be any contact, no sex. Can you imagine an 80-year-old man alone with a 25-year-old woman or something? And she came to you, so she's ready. You imagine nothing transpires that night at that time? Can you imagine that? With him saying, I cannot do it yet, I have to wait for the guy with the first right of first refusal? Can you imagine that in the year 2025? Outside of the most holy Torah universe of religious people who are God-fearing and believe God is there and watching. So you'll go and you'll lie at his feet. She says, I'll do everything you tell me. She went down to the threshing floor and did just as mother-in-law had told her. Chamota, her mother-in-law. Why doesn't it say Naomi? To help you understand that this is all very up and up. This is really up and up. This is a mother-in-law telling a daughter-in-law, I want a grandchild. And that's the reason for this. This is not a friend telling a lady, here's a guy, and go have some fun tonight. There's a fraternity party going on. Boaz ate and drank in a cheerful mood because they've just had a successful barley harvest, went to lie down beside the grain pile. Then Ruth sneaked in stealthily. How did he put it in here? Balat, stealthily, secretly. She went in secretly, stealthily, and uncovered his feet. Vatigal margalotav, and lay down. Uncovering the feet is like unbuckling the shoe. Why doesn't she unbuckle the shoe and be more explicit? Because he goes to sleep without a shoe buckled on. Most people don't want to go to sleep with buckled shoes. Yeah, there's occasions, but she's sleeping without shoes. No. So what's she going to uncover? His feet. All makes perfect sense. And it's for him to figure this out. Why is she going for uncovering my feet? It's not like she's just lying at my feet, but she took the blanket or whatever he had and she uncovered the feet. In the middle of the night, by the way, at the Seder, one of the two nights at the end of the Seder, in the Haggadah, there's a song, Vayehi b'chatzi halayla, and it recounts all the things in the Tanakh and the Talmud in which God does miracles, b'chatzi halayla, in the middle of the night. Can you think of some? What happened in the middle of the night? Avraham Avinu, our father Abraham, had the deep tardema, the deep sleep in the Brit Bein Habitarim, when he divided the three different types of birds, and in the middle of the night, and God said, "Know verily that your descendants in 400 years are going to be slaves in a land they do not know, but then they will leave that slavery with great wealth, and they will come to the land where you are, and I will bring them to that land." That was the middle of the night, that dream. Yaakov Avinu, in the middle of the night, as he was leaving and fleeing from his parents' home before Esav would kill him en route to Lavan, he went to sleep and he dreamt about the angels going up and down the ladder, Vayehi b'chatzi halayla, in the middle of the night. And then when he left Lavan's house to come back, and he was bringing his wives and his children, Lavan was pursuing him and almost got caught up and then went to sleep. Vayehi b'chatzi halayla, in the middle of the night. And God came to Lavan in a dream and said, "If you hurt him or say a word to him, I'll kill you." And that way, Lavan, when he caught up with Yaakov, couldn't be nicer, instead of killing Yaakov, which was his intention, because God came to him in the middle of the night. And so it goes. The 10th plague, the slaying of the firstborn in Egypt, Vayehi b'chatzi halayla. Everything in the middle of the night, so many things. They all get listed in that in your Haggadah. If you look it up, it's the end of the Seder, one of the two nights. Vayehi b'chatzi halayla. All the things that happened in Judaism in the middle of the night. And this is one of them, that it was the middle of the night and God woke up Boaz. Boaz happened to wake up and he sees an apparition that's not just an apparition, but an actual human being at his feet. And he almost passed out. Vayilafet. He became pale. Mind you, he's also like 80 or 90 years old or whatever. So if that's a man, in the middle of the night, you're trying to prevent a robbery. So what kind of people do you expect might come in? Bad guys, bad players. And he sees one at his feet. He's terrified. Then he notices it's a woman who's lying down at Margalotav, from the word regel, his feet. It's also the, you may have heard of Jews named Margalit or Margolis as a last name. It's also a precious gem. There's an actress, she was in Juliana Margulies. She was in The Good Wife and other stuff. And she's one of the rare Jews in Hollywood who's openly pro-Israel now. So it's the word Margalit. And he said, "Who are you?" And she says, "Because it's dark." He wouldn't have said it. Well, first of all, she probably looks a world different when she's dressed up like that and made up like that versus when she's working in the middle of the field. But also, it's so dark, you barely could see your own hand. "Who are you?" "Anochi Ruth amatecha." I am Ruth, your maidservant, your handmaid. I'm asking you to spread your wings upon me. Now, what is that all about? Is that a sexual thing? Bring me under your blanket with you. Nobody's here, just you and I. middle of the night, in the barn. What is she saying? Spread your wings over me. The rabbis explain that's how certain birds copulate. They begin with the male bird spreading its wings over the female bird. Here, they're not going to copulate. We know this. Boaz is about to say, I'm just not going to do anything until we first go to the gentleman with the ROFR, right of first refusal. He explained, At Barucha at Lashem Biti, you are blessed of God, and he says God's name. How kind and Hetaft Chastecha Achron Rishon. Your chesed is even greater here than Rishon, than previously. What chesed is she shown? She shows chesed everywhere, Ruth. She showed chesed to a mother-in-law, Naomi, sticking with Naomi even when Orpah left. And Orpah was not wrong for leaving. Naomi was begging her to leave, but Ruth just wouldn't leave. And Ruth remained loyal to her deceased husband, now ready to raise a family in his name, and loyal to our people. And she's just so loyal, and she's so kind. And she goes out gathering all that food for the two of them. And she could have had it so much easier just staying behind Imov. And Boaz knows all of this. Everybody knows who she is and what her story is. How kind you are. Levilti lechet achrei bachurim im dalvim asher, and that you're not trying to mate now with one of the better looking guys, which is basically anybody, whether poor or rich. I mean, I'm nothing to look at. We don't even know how well he operates in that field. Honestly, he's so elderly, we don't know. And I'm not a woman, so I don't know. I know that a 90-year-old man typically would not mind being with a 20-year-old woman. I know that. How do I know? Because there's Bill Belichick, the former coach of the New England Patriots, and there was Strom Thurmond, who married Miss South Carolina when he was 66 and she was 22. So we know that. But I don't know what it's like for the 22-year-old with the 66-year-old or the 86-year-old. I leave that to the women in class to just contemplate. And he's saying, I mean, the idea that, you don't have to do this, like what Obama said to Biden. You don't have to do this. You're Jewish, you're not Jewish. You're not really a real Yavama, because when you were married to him, it wasn't a marriage. The husband who died, you were still a goy. You only became a Jew after he died. And you continued with Naomi and you became Jewish. So you're not a real widow. You were with a guy you weren't married to. An intermarriage is not a marriage, doesn't count for anything. And instead, you're actually going to go and try to have a baby with a 90-year-old man simply because you're maintaining the loyalty to the man that you're halachically never were married to therefore a lady who halachically never was your mother-in-law? Now, daughter, have no fear. I will do on your behalf whatever you ask. I'm going to do it. I know what you want. She hasn't said it yet, by the way. Has she said it? What has she said? Who are you? She said, spread your robe over your handmaid. So he gets it. I will deal with it. I'm going to the elders of town. Everybody knows you're an Eshet Chayil. That's where the term comes from. Everyone knows you're an Eshet Chayil. What is an Eshet Chayil? Let's see if we can find this real quick. Okay. So Eshet Chayil is from the book of Proverbs, Mishlei, chapter 31. Eshet Chayil miyimtza v'rachok mipaninim michra matach balev bala v'shala lo yachsar. So an Eshet Chayil was actually written originally by King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, in honor of his mother. He deemed his mother to be a woman of valor, and he wrote this poem in honor of his mother. It has become the universal Jewish poem that men sing in honor of their wives. What a rare find is a capable wife. No, it's a bad translation. Oh, a woman of valor, V-A-L-O-R. How rare. Worth is far beyond pearls. What a translation. Far beyond pearls. Okay. So he's saying to her, everyone knows you're a woman of valor, an Eshet Chayil. So I will bring you to the gates of the city, and that'll be it. Ki odeh kol sha'ar ami. So a bad translation, elders of my town. That would be Ziknei Iri, not sha'ar ami. Everybody at the gates knows you're a woman of valor. But while it is true I'm a redeeming kinsman, I am the one, in other words, I'm the one who's the relative to do the Yavama. I did this last class with the chart. There is another Redeemer closer than I did this last week on the chart. I showed you this one guy ahead of him, that there had been the three original brothers, Salmon, Elimelech, and Tov or Ploni Almoni. And Salmon is dead, Elimelech is dead, but Ploni Almoni is still around. And then they all had children. And we said that Ploni Almoni had Naomi, so she's not going to marry Ruth. And Elimelech had Machlon and Kilion, they're dead, they're not going to marry Ruth. And that leaves Boaz, who's the son of Solomon, and he'll marry Ruth. So Boaz is after in line Ploni Almoni, but he comes first because he's the prior generation, and he's still alive. So stay for the night. Boaz basically says, I'm not going to be intimate with you. And if Ploni Almoni wants to be intimate with you and do this, bring a child, and I will not ever have the chance to be intimate with you. This is how holy he is. He's the judge, Shofet of the time. From the book of Judges, Shoftim, he's the judge of that generation. Iftzan was his name, his other name. We learned that last class. So stay for the night, because it's too dangerous to go home in the middle of the night. Then in the morning, but before everybody's on the road, we'll go to the city. If he agrees to act as your redeemer, he'll redeem. And if he doesn't, then I will do it myself. As the Lord lives, I'm giving you an oath. Chai Hashem. I'm not just telling you, I'm promising. So the question in the mind is, he tells her, I will do this if Ploni Almoni does not. Why does he have to make a vow? Wouldn't he be glad to do it? Wouldn't a 90-year-old man be glad? I'm just making up the year 90. I don't know how old. Be glad to do this with a gorgeous 20-year-old woman who's dressed like that and smells like that and made up like that right now? Why is he making her a vow? Because she's actually the one afraid that he's turning her down. As much as he is amazed that she is doing this and subjecting or presenting herself to an old man rather than a strapping young man, she is afraid that he's basically letting me go and dumping me because I am a Moabite. And he doesn't want to say it, doesn't want to hurt my feelings, doesn't want to basically convey that even though I'm a convert to Judaism, I'll never be good enough. So he's being nice and he's telling me come tomorrow, and he's not going to show up tomorrow. So he's saying I'm invoking the holy name of God to guarantee you I'm honest. This is not like a one-night stand that didn't even stand or whatever, didn't do much for this one night. And it's not like I'll be calling you, and he never does. So he's invoking God's name versus just giving her the. So she lay at his feet until dawn. I always talk about how bad their translation is. It's the worst ever, but the grammar is good. Instead of saying so she laid or she lie, So she lay at his feet, very good. So she lay at his feet until dawn, and she rose before anybody would be able to distinguish it. You got to get out. It should be light enough that the midnight robbers are off the road, but not so early in the morning that people see her and how she's dressed. So people shouldn't say, wow, Garan. People shouldn't see what she just looked like, and she's coming from the threshing floor. So he also gave her food. She was wearing a lovely scarf or whatever, and he said to her, take off your scarf and make it like into a basket, and I'll give you barley to carry it. Go home with it. She came home to Naomi. No, what happened? What happened? How is it with you, daughter? No. And she told her all that had happened. Naomi said, okay. Ruth said, he gave me this food. I shouldn't go home empty-handed, right? Like a Jew, you visit a Jew, they always give you food. Whenever you go somewhere. I spent the weekend in Louisville, Kentucky with my daughter, Kinneret, about 15, 20 years ago. Judge Boggs, for whom I had clerked, is married to a Jewish lady, Judy. She's a judge, Judge Judy. And she's Jewish from Brooklyn, from the old country. She's a real Hamish Jew. Really, she grew up Jewish, a real Hamish Jew. So anyway, Judge Boggs, they had a special celebration marking his 20th year on the bench of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. So they invited all of his previous 60 clerks. He has 3 a year for 20 years. And, not everybody came, but I wouldn't miss it for the world. And I brought one of my kids. I brought Kinneret. And when the program ended on Sunday, to fly back to California, Judy would not she didn't do this with anyone else, because no one else was a landsman from the old country. But she knew I'm from Brooklyn as she is. And she said, Dov, come on. She can call me Dov. I was a clerk, not a rabbi to her. And she calls me in with Kinneret, and she starts packing bagels for us. And she starts packing cream cheese containers. And she starts packing all kinds of stuff. And rugelach. And I said, Judy, we don't need this. And she wouldn't let us go. You couldn't. She practically locked the door and wouldn't let us go until I agreed to take 2 bags full of rugelach and bagels. That's Jews. So Naomi's saying, okay, he's Hamish. He wouldn't let you go home empty-handed. Naomi said, stay here till you learn how it turns out tomorrow morning. You can count on him. There are men who make promises and they don't keep them. His reputation, he'll honor his promise. So it was the next morning and he showed up as promised. And it just so happened that the guy ahead of him on the list, Ploni Almoni, was passing by the gate. And so Boaz, they're relatives. Boaz is his nephew, right? Boaz is the son of Salmon, and Ploni Almoni is a brother of Salmon, the one remaining surviving living brother. And Boaz is his nephew. Uncle Ploni, come on over here. Sit down. And so he sat down, came over. And this idea of the gates of the city, that they went to the Shar, the gates, have that in mind. And they grabbed 10 elders of the town. Miziknei ha'ir. Zarkain means old or elder, both ways. Just an old man or an elder. And here again we come to a very famous line in the book of Proverbs, in Eshet Chayil. We always sing it. Noda b'sharim bala b'shivto im ziknei aretz. Her husband is prominent. One of the things about the Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, is that she creates a home life that allows her husband to be prominent. A bad wife holds a man back from being all he can be. That's that expression that behind every successful man is a woman who made that possible. I know that's not a feminist ideal. Why should it be the role of the woman to make the man successful? Let the man make her successful. And sure, ideally both. But certainly in biblical times, writing an ode to his mother. So that's how Solomon put it. A great wife, behind every great man is a woman, is ideally his wife. And her husband is prominent in the gates. So what's going on at the gates? We saw this in the book of Megillat Esther also. All the prominent people are at the gates. We're winding down now as time runs out and as the book runs out. So he says to the Redeemer, Naomi just came back and she's got to sell her property. She had property from her husband, Elimelech, and she's put it on sale. She got out the word, and I just found out. The first right goes to you. If you don't want it, I'm going to buy it. I thought I should disclose the matter to you and say, acquire it in the presence of this minion. There are 10 people here, Ziknei Ami, elders of the land. If you're willing, buy it. It's her property. She's got some land that belonged to Elimelech in Bethlehem, Bethlehem. And if you don't want it, then I'm going to buy it. I come after you. And the guy said, sure, I'll buy it. It's good real estate. So Ploni Almoni says, I will buy what Naomi is selling. And then Boaz adds the kicker. You got to buy the whole package. She's selling her real estate together with this woman who used to be her daughter-in-law. Boaz continued, when you acquire the property from Naomi, the real estate, you're buying also from Ruth the Moabitess. And you have to acquire her too, the wife of the deceased, so as to perpetuate the name of the deceased, as we've been talking tonight. Redeemer said, I can't do that. Then I cannot redeem it, because I'll end up destroying my own estate. Now, either the rabbis say, what was he afraid of? One opinion is he'll mess up his marriage. He's got a wife and brings in another lady who's prettier and etc. Second opinion is if he spends the money on buying the rights to that property and Ruth, he will go from a guy who owns property and has a lot of money to a guy who is house poor, who has an enormous amount of real estate but can't afford breakfast in the morning. He won't have any cash. And then there's a third opinion that if he has Ruth and he has a baby, then that baby is also going to inherit, and his estate that currently is enough to take care of his children, by the time he's done having babies with Ruth, he won't have a lot for everybody. So he says, you go ahead and take over my right of redemption. I just can't do it. And that was it. In those days, the way you redeemed a yibum that we've been talking about tonight, in the case of a redemption of this nature, a man would take off his shoe and hand it to the other. Such was the practice in Israel. In American law, it's called consideration. When you do a contract, you have to do something, an action that manifests a formal contract, that you're not just talking back and forth, a bunch of blowing hot air at each other, but you're actually seriously transacting a transaction. So the way it was done then is that when you did a contract to buy property, one would give a shoe to the other. It's not clear, and the rabbis commenting on it aren't clear whether the buyer gives a shoe to the seller or the seller gives a shoe to the buyer. But what happens here is that the Redeemer, that's Ploni, says to Boaz, I can't buy it, so you go and buy it. And it says he drew off his sandal, and we still don't know who it refers to, Vayishlof Na'alo. And Boaz said to the minion, there were all those elders at the gate. We have a minion. Hey, this timing's great. Not only have I just bought the rights to the lady, let me marry her right now because we have a minion. Boaz said to the elders and others, Lazakenim, that's the minion, your witnesses today that I'm acquiring from Naomi all that belong to Elimelech and all that belong to Kilion and Machlon, and I am also acquiring Ruth, formerly wife of Machlon, as my wife, for the purpose we've been talking about tonight, to perpetuate the name of the deceased in Israel, that the name of the deceased may not disappear from among his kinsmen and the gate of his hometown, that people will never forget the name and will always know that this is the property, the lineage of Machlon. And the minion responded and said, we're witnesses. You are witness today. We are. Adam, we're here. May the Lord protect you. Make the woman coming into your house be like Rachel and Leah, Rachel and Leah, both of whom built up the house of Israel. Wonderful. And the rabbis say, why compare to Rachel and Leah? Because who were they? They were both the daughters of a guy. Lavan was a guy, and Aramean, Lavan ha'Arami. Lavan ha'Arami. So they were the daughters, Rachel and Leah, were the daughters of a guy who married a great holy Jew and ended up being not just the wives of a great Jew, but the mothers of the Jewish people. May Ruth grow to be a daughter of a goy, that she already is, who goes to become the mother of the Jewish people. And by being a mother that leads to David, which leads to Mashiach, this is exactly the bracha that is fulfilled. So we wrap it up. Everything else is just tying up the knot. We wrap up the knot as follows. May you be, just get this off screen. May your house be like those of the house of Peretz, who Tamar's another, in Bereshit, the book of Genesis, the daughter of a non-Jew who had a baby with and married Yehuda. And Peretz came from him, Peretz and Zerach. So Peretz came from the great Yehuda, progenitor of the tribe of Yehuda, and a non-Jewish woman. Rachel and Leah, the daughters of non-Jewish man, marrying into the tribe. Boaz marries Ruth, and he cohabited with her. God let her conceive, and he died. And that's this idea of Vayitan Hashem lahir. Why doesn't it say she got pregnant? Why does it say God let her conceive? Because it's one shot. It was his destiny to die that night or the next day. And she bore a son. And the woman said to Naomi, you see, you thought your lineage ended? Your sons were gone? Praise God, praise the Lord. He ended up giving you a lineage. And this child will renew your life, the new little baby. And he's born of your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons. And Naomi took the little grandson, became its foster mother. And the women gave her a name, saying, a son is born to Naomi, even though born to Ruth. And they named him Ovid. And he had a child named Jesse, Yishai, and Yishai had David. Tikrena Shmo Oved, Hu Avi Yishai, Avi David. And then the book just ends by giving us the lineage. This is the line of Peretz. Peretz is born to Yehuda and Tamar. He had Chetzron. Chetzron had Ram. Ram had Aminadav. We talked about him last class. Aminadav had Nachshon, who went into the Red Sea. We did that last class. Nachshon had Salma, also Salmon, both. Salmon said Salma, Salmon. One is a nickname. Salmon had Boaz. Boaz had Oved. Oved had Yishai. Yishai had David. End of book. I want to thank everybody for being with us through all these classes. I apologize that we went a little bit over tonight. But Baruch Hashem, I hope you'll remember all of it the next Shavuos, and I hope you at least you can go back next time to the YouTube. It'll be there for you, God willing. So thanks for being here.